Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Michael Waas.
Good afternoon. Great to be with you.
My name is Amina Batagarawa. I'm a staff of Bayes University in Abuja, Nigeria. I'm actually here with some of my students, so if you're here, yes, and I teach them environmental sciences, so we're very well placed here.
Wonderful.
I'm very happy to welcome you here, and it's my duty to introduce you today and to the rest of the world. In people in waste management actually need no introduction to Michael Wass. But for the other people who don't know him, he is a global vice president of brand partnerships at TerraCycle. It's an international leader in recycling difficult to recycle waste and the circular economy. TerraCycle engages tens of millions of consumers in more than 20 countries. It has recycled billions of pieces of waste, which the world needs, as we all know, and it has pioneered recycling solutions for some of the world's most challenging waste streams. That's very interesting in the Nigerian context, so I'm sure we'll have lots of questions for you. In 2019, TerraCycle launched Loop, which is a global platform that allows companies to shift to a durable supply chain through a reuse model. Michael joined TerraCycle in 2008 and has helped lead TerraCycle's global expansion by developing award-winning sustainability partnerships with companies in diverse categories. There's such a huge, very impressive list of companies that Michael has worked with, and he's very passionate about helping companies of all sizes to find the value of the triple bottom line. He's an experienced speaker. I've actually been watching some of your videos ever since I was told I was going to introduce you, and I must say that's very impressive. And he talks on topics of sustainability, social entrepreneurship, and the circular economy. I must say that you are very welcome, and we're very interested to hear what you have to say for a while, and then we'll take questions afterwards. I believe the whole session is 30 minutes, and you have about 10 minutes to speak.
Mhm.
The floor is yours.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mina, for that introduction. And I have to say, it is an honor to be with you all today. Uh, to build on what Amina was sharing, and by way of introduction for TerraCycle, we are a for-profit but purpose-driven company focused on eliminating the idea of waste. And so we focus on helping to reframe the way people look at the products that end up typically being trash. And the concept of building a circular economy and of promoting circular product streams seems like a new conversation, but and yeah, wonderful. If you're able to go to the second slide, Amina. Uh, but what we have found is, and truly, waste is a modern invention. For the entire history of the natural world, there was no waste because it doesn't exist in nature. The output of every system becomes the input for another. So when a creature dies or a tree falls over, it decays and then becomes nutrients that then continue feeding a system. If you go to the next slide, it really wasn't until the development of complex materials that we began to see the modern waste problem. And so when we think about that moment, and this is really 60 or 70 years ago, the concept of creating products that would be used only once emerged because we created materials that allowed for disposability. And so that led to the development of packaging. And at the time that it was, right there is perfect, wonderful. At the time that disposable products were created, they were really considered an improvement for people because they made life more convenient. Or if you're trying to to keep equipment sterile in a dirty environment or a field environment or where transportation is difficult, disposable packaging helps keep things sterile. So there's many uses and benefits to disposable packaging and products, but we've created a linear economy where we take materials out of the ground, typically oil, turn that into a product or package, and then the vast majority of all of the products and packaging ever created by humans have ended up either being burned or buried. And those are the two prevailing ways that we deal with waste today. And it's easy to think of this in terms of recycling sortation challenges, or that there is an issue with the infrastructure for recycling. But the reality is that it is really an economic challenge, and it's very simple. It's simply taking the cost of the collection and the cost of processing for any material and balancing that against the material value. Anytime that material value is high enough to cover the cost of collecting and processing the waste, you're going to end up with a material that people want to collect. And I like to say that the easiest way to solve the global crisis for garbage is to start manufacturing everything from gold, because there has never been a time that a piece of gold jewelry has broken and someone threw it out. And that's because of the material value, right? However, because we can't make everything from gold, this has led to an enormous challenge where the volume of waste created far surpasses the ability of the natural world to cope with it. And so we are left with oceans that in the next 15 to 20 years will have more plastic than fish. So TerraCycle's first goal is to take that linear process and turn it into a more circular process by making it possible to recycle everything. And so if you go to slide 8, you can see just a couple of examples where we have done everything from take old margarine containers and turn them into planters that were sold at a major retailer, 35 million of these, that prevented the need to create virgin plastic planter pots. And so we're reducing the need for virgin materials by reusing materials that were already in the system. Or if you go to the next slide, we worked with Frito-Lay to create chip bag delivery trucks that are made in part from chip bags collected from schools and organizations all over the United States of America. Or if you go to the next slide, we've created hundreds of recycled products, including lumber and outdoor furniture. And here you're looking at an example of a community garden that was created out of personal care and cosmetic waste. So shampoo bottles and pumps and mascara and compacts that typically would be landfilled, but instead we've recovered and turned into a garden. Now, that's the first step in our process, which is to make everything recyclable. The next is to then get more recycled materials into the product chain. And one of the ways we've done this is by working with partners, if you go to the next slide, to create a supply chain for beach and ocean-bound plastic that allows us to, that we've developed to collect that material, sort it and separate it. And then if you go to slide 13, you can see an example of one of the products we've made from that, which is a Head & Shoulders shampoo bottle made from the beach, in part from the beach and ocean plastic. And so we did this with P&G, which is one of the world's largest product manufacturers. And so worked with them to develop a supply chain that allowed them to take a material that typically doesn't have a supply chain. There is no easy way to access that beach plastic and turn it into something they can use, a material that they can use for their products. The last part of our platform is really intended to shift the paradigm when we think about products and move into a more circular model. Now, this is based on a simple concept, which is the ownership of the products and packaging you buy. So think of the last time that you went to buy a sachet of soap or shampoo or any product. You bought the product, but then also that packaging. And consumers globally are buying packaging that once they've consumed the product is no longer a benefit to them, and they're forced to dispose of it, typically by landfill or incineration. However, if we flip the concept of that ownership, and instead of creating packages to be used once, which means that we want to keep them as cheap as possible, and instead turn them into an asset where the company that manufactures the product also retains ownership of the packaging, then it becomes an asset and allows that company to invest into creating a highly durable, high quality material. Now that contrasts with the current mentality, which is keeping the cost as low as possible, and so keeping that packaging cost as low as possible. And there's an interesting thing when we think about this concept of durability versus disposability. And so if you go to the next slide, you'll see the development of packaging types for beverage products, where the prevailing packaging format up until 30 or 40 years ago was glass. Most beverages were packaged in glass bottles, which are highly reusable and also highly recyclable. Companies then shifted to aluminum because it is lighter weight, then to PET plastic bottles because those are even lighter than aluminum, then to cartons, and then to pouches, sachets that are flexible. Now, each step reduces the material weight, the material volume, and it also increases the material complexity. And so that creates a challenge for recycling because the complexity increases cost while the volume weight goes down, meaning that it is necessary to collect more of the more complex packaging in order to have a sustainable business model. It makes it more challenging for recyclers. This is the continuum of waste that we had talked about before, where as you're looking at products and packaging, it's helpful to think of them being on a continuum with gold or other very high value materials at one end, meaning that the inherent material value is so high that the reclamation rate is very high, all the way down to more complex, more challenging materials like dirty diapers or cigarette butts and materials that require incremental processing and sortation and separation steps to use. Now for Loop, which is our durable reusable model that we launched in 2019 in partnership with many major consumer packaged goods companies like PepsiCo and Unilever and Nestle, we've worked with them to create a model where instead of creating a package, and you can see an example here with deodorant, where the deodorant today is primarily sold in disposable plastic packaging. Now, that costs, and these numbers are just to give you a sense of scale, but every time that deodorant is sold, that packaging cost is incurred by the brand. But if instead we work with the brand to create a model where they can retain ownership of the package, then even though the cost to design that reusable, durable package is many times higher, even 300 times higher, because it can be used over and over again, the actual cost per use goes down below the cost of disposability. This has enabled us to work with partners to create really incredible packaging. You're looking at an example of ice cream packaging developed by our friends at Haagen-Dazs, where instead of being sold in a waxed paper carton, it's the Haagen-Dazs ice cream is sold in a stainless steel double-walled container that not only looks great, but also keeps the ice cream frozen for much longer than the waxed paper. Or you can see another example for a shampoo bottle. So think of the current shampoo sachet or bottle that you use that gets disposed of. This is a new bottle developed by our friends at Pantene that can be used hundreds of times and also fantastic. So from a consumer point of view, this really opens up fantastic opportunities to move into a durable, reusable platform that provides the same convenience as disposable products, but without the disposable products. And so creates a world without waste. That is an overview of TerraCycle, and I'd be happy to pause and Amina, open it up to any questions that you or the group may have.
That's very interesting. I really enjoyed that. And considering the age of some of our youth here, they probably can't remember when the world used to be circular,
Hmm.
when we became linear now, and then we're now forced to think differently. I'm interested to find out though, if I buy these packages that are supposed to be reused, who does the collection? Do I take it to a shop and get it refilled? How does it work exactly? Like the ice cream and the shampoo?
Sure. It's a great question. We launched Loop a year ago in the Paris region and the New York City region, and have since expanded both of those footprints within those respective countries. We are launching the platform in the UK and Canada, Australia, and Japan, many other countries, to increase the geographic availability. And the model has two forms. One is an e-commerce platform that allows any person to buy the products. They get shipped to the person in a reusable shipping container. The person then uses the products, and when they are empty, they don't have to clean the products. They just put them back into the same shipping container, request a pickup, and then TerraCycle or Loop services the product and brings it back to be cleaned and sanitized and sent back to be refilled and sent back out to another consumer. That's the first platform that is available now. We are also working with leading global retailers like Carrefour and Walgreens and Loblaws and Tesco's to provide an in-store physical option where consumers will be able to go and buy the Loop products directly from a store, just like they would any other product.
Okay, that's an interesting concept. But I'm wondering with COVID-19 and how everybody is now woke with the idea of sanitation and hygiene, if that affects the way that you deal or you want to deal with the containers.
Yes, it's a very important question, and uh, we have developed our sanitation and cleaning standards to be so rigorous that they match the cleaning and sanitation standards for all of our major manufacturing partners. And so we know that any products that come through the Loop platform are sanitized to the extent that they are absolutely safe to be used in the system.
Okay, let me bring it back to the Nigerian context. According to Dr. Akinshemolu in the Principles of Green and Sustainability Science book, congratulations on the book, Doctor. Challenges of waste management in developing economies are exacerbated by issues of governance. Considering you are also kind of promoters of circular economy, what corrective measures should be taken in these countries by different classes of people, by individuals, businesses, and society to check the issue of governance?
It's a critical question for much of the world, because what we know is that in developed economies, there is a highly standardized, highly formalized waste management sector. In most emerging economies and in most of the world, that is an informal sector. And so we see communities and waste pickers and co-ops emerging to fill that void. And it is important to realize that that provides an important waste management function and an important economic function, and that is that provides income for many families globally. And so, in creating guidelines and governance, it's critical to provide safeguards and measures that allow the enfranchisement and the ability to regulate the waste management industry in a way that it provides for public and addresses public health and safety measures, but also acknowledges the critical role that the informal waste economy plays in waste management globally. We recently launched, just about 18 months ago, a foundation, the TerraCycle Global Foundation, that focuses on taking many of the learnings. TerraCycle has gathered over the last 20 years of doing this work, and seeks to make them available to emerging economies and communities around the world. And we just have launched our first project to aid in river cleanups in Thailand. We're looking to expand our work into India and other regions, but that is a critical area that is one that requires significant work.
Are we expecting you in Nigeria soon?
Please contact me and I will put you in touch with our foundation. Yeah.
I will. I'm not sure if we have somebody else in the channel who wants to ask a question from the public. If not, I have some more questions. Okay, I think, and I'm not sure how we're doing for time. So I was wondering what policies should be enacted to incentivize the waste management sector as a viable platform for job opportunities, in relation to what you've seen in other countries and
Mhm.
maybe what can help us here in Nigeria, things that the governments have done
Yeah.
to encourage this informal sector.
Absolutely. I think there's a great example of legislation that was passed in Brazil some years ago, the National Solid Waste Law, that mandated companies to recover through recycling a percentage of waste compared to their production. And it required the important stipulation that a percentage of that volume be collected through co-ops, which is part of the informal waste economy in Brazil. And so in that way, this national waste law included the informal sector, which is a crucial part of the waste management economy in Brazil, as part of the formal federal law. I think that's a model that can be used in other regions because it includes an allocation and focus on including that important sector when addressing waste issues.
Okay, a lot of your work is to do with shifting the way people think from a linear kind of thinking to a more circular. I wonder if you have, tips, things that you can do for people to actually connect with what you're saying so that they can actually start thinking in a different way.
Absolutely. One of the easiest things is to look at all of the products and all of the packaging that you have, that we all have in our homes and businesses and offices. And so when you're done with a product, instead of pitching it or throwing it in a rubbish bin, consider other uses for the product, because that reuse is the single best option from an environmental perspective, because it takes no energy. You already have the material. So if you're done with a water bottle or a soda bottle, perhaps you can cut the top off of it and use it as a holder for pens or writing instruments, right? And reuse things in that way. We've developed thousands of upcycled products that allow, are intended to inspire consumers to do exactly that, to reimagine waste as something usable. And so that continues all the way through, to look at the products that you typically would throw away, not as something to throw away, but to consider what other options, what other uses those products may have.
This term upcycle, can you just elaborate on what actually constitutes an upcycled material as opposed to recycled material?
Sure. The way TerraCycle defines upcycling is when you can when you can determine and see what the original product was. So for instance, with flexible films or drink pouch sachets, if you take those pouches and sew them into a reusable bag, we would consider that upcycling. That honors both the form of the material as well as the actual material. Recycling is when you break the material down into a pellet. You can no longer determine what the original product was, but you are still recovering the material to be used in manufacturing another product.
Okay, that makes sense. I was wondering. Um, I'm still expecting questions from the public, but none are forthcoming. So, um, and I don't. Okay, and we still have some time. So, are you up for more questions?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Let's go back to the government again, or finance bodies. What is the role of finance in stimulating innovations in waste management, and how should this resource be allocated and accounted for?
Well, that's a great question and really goes to the heart of the waste challenge globally. And as that we talked about earlier, that the key challenge in waste management isn't sortation or separation or collection. It is the economics of the recovered material. And so the single best thing the financial sector can do is to create financial incentives for companies to create less waste and to recover and drive recycling for the waste that is created.
Okay, that's great. We have a last question, and we can pack up. And it's similar to my question: is Loop coming to the UK? You have some more followers in the UK.
Yes, I'm happy to say Loop is coming to the UK. Our timing for expanding was changed a little bit due to COVID-19, but we are planning to be in the UK within the next 12 months.
Excellent. That's close to Nigeria, so we're hoping from the UK, you can take a leap over the ocean. So thank you very much, Mr. Michael Waas. We have learned a lot. I hope my students are listening and they're taking everything in. So I hope to see you again.
Likewise,
Thank you,
it was a
and
pleasure.
a
Thank
happy
you all.
World Environment Day.
And to you. Thank you.